among the fields of straw and stover, clocked in till the work day's over. Time's a gentle stream, longer than it seems. Patient is the night.
Over the Garden Wall is one of my favorite pieces of animation of all time. After watching it 3 times in the past couple of days, I feel no shame saying that. The entire show is extremely charming and very humorous, and it's filled to the brim with metaphors, secrets, and foreshadowing, and honestly, it's kind of dark. And that makes it all the more better. I've scoured the show and read through many discussions online looking for interesting secrets, and some of the things that I found might straight up blow your mind. First things first, the land of the unknown. Come episode 9, we find out that Wirt and Greg and our frog friend are lost in the unknown due to them violently falling down the hill to escape an oncoming train, and are slowly sinking to the bottom of a river. Then the story follows up to them being directly lost from there on out, and nothing really in between.
Where are we?
In the woods?
I mean, what are we doing out here?
We're walking home.
Greg, I think we're lost. We should have left a trail or something.
This leaves the land of the unknown and its meaning to the viewer's interpretation, and after following the show, I have developed my own theory. I play my cards that the unknown is quite simply the afterlife, and Wirt and Greg are lost because they are stuck between life and death. They are dying. Their entire journey, all the people and stories they come across is like their tunnel, their sneak preview of purgatory and the afterlife. Guys, this journey literally decides whether or not these 2 kids actually die. So yeah, that means all the characters the boys encounter while being lost in the unknown were actually souls of the dead, probably looking for their rightful place to rest. The unknown is the afterlife, and Wirt and Greg, and their frog I guess, are stuck in limbo. Now if that theory is correct, then we can figure that Wirt and Greg are actually unconsciously fighting for their lives while traversing the unknown. If either of them succumb to the beast, then they would succumb to death itself and never wake up. Sorry everybody who shipped Wirt and Beatrice. She's dead. The whole the unknown is the afterlife theory is actually the most recognized, as it's almost canon by the end of the show. It's pretty much part of the story, though never directly said. Everybody has their own take on what happened, but that's my generalization of it. Something interesting to note that actually backs the theory up is this scene in Chapter 9. Take a look at the gravestone that Greg hides behind in the cemetery. Notice the name reads Quincy Endicott. Sound familiar? Well, it should. Quincy Endicott is the very same owner of the mansion and tea company in Chapter 5, and also the boys' adopted uncle. It's a neat secret and backs up the theory that the boys met Endicott's soul in the unknown. Speaking of graves, a Tumblr user under the name of El Saren brought up a really cool piece of information. Remember Pottsfield in Chapter 2? Well, the name Pottsfield and even the story itself is a reference to a potter's field, which is essentially a term used to describe a gravesite used to bury the unknown and poor in marked graves, and usually in mass amounts. This was common practice during the 19th century, during times like the Civil War, to bury the sheer amount of dead all at once without having the high cost and lessen the worry for diseases. Thanks a lot, El Saren, that was really cool. One thing that I noticed is that out of all the animals in the show, only 2 actually talk. I mean, okay, yeah, the frog can sing, but for now I don't really count that. The 2 animals are Beatrice, who's a bluebird, and Fred, who's the horse. During Chapter 3, notice none of the animals in the schoolhouse ever speak a word. We know that Beatrice is actually a human who was cursed by Adelaide, who turned her and her family all into birds. Her family can also talk while being turned into a bluebird. Now with that in mind, Fred can also speak. Not only that, in Chapter 5, after fleeing the woodsman on horseback, Wirt gets direction to Adelaide's house from Fred. It seems that others don't really know where she lives unless they're really connected to her. This leaves me to believe that Fred may actually have been human at one point and was cursed by Adelaide, just like Beatrice, and turned into a horse. Now, I couldn't find any proof as to why he was cursed, or even if he was, but then again, this is a theory. But due to his infatuation with the criminal act of stealing, and he's quoted saying,
"I'll never steal again, I swear, I'll get an honest job," and
I believe he may have been cursed for trying to steal from her. Okay, so let's back up a bit. Way back to Chapter 1. This next part is very straightforward and is a fact. The mill that the woodsman has repurposed in Chapter 1 is Beatrice's home. Take a look at these comparison screenshots from Chapter 1 and the very end of Chapter 10. You can see the wallpaper, furniture placement, and the window are exactly the same. If that doesn't convince you, then yeah, it's the same place. Also notice the bluebird on the table here? Just thought that was kind of neat. I was looking at the music on YouTube and... Wait, can you look at music? Whatever. I was listening to the music on YouTube and noticed that all of the thumbnails in the official soundtrack album from the Cartoon Network spells out The Unknown. I just thought that was pretty cool. At the end of Chapter 10, when Wirt wakes up in the hospital, you can see Thunderburker and the girl wearing the bird costume holding hands as a reference to this scene.
You can let go of my hand now.
Oh, yeah.
You can hold my hand, Thunderburker. I don't care.
For those who didn't notice or didn't pause the video to look, in Chapter 10 you can actually see a flash of what the beast looks like when the lantern passes over him. Now this is a bit of a stretch, but I actually noticed a similarity between Over the Garden Wall and The Divine Comedy, also known as Dante's Inferno. In Over the Garden Wall, the boys have Beatrice to sort of guide them through the unknown because they're lost. In Dante's Inferno, there's also a lady named Beatrice who actually guides Dante through heaven and causes his trip through the afterlife to see what awaits him. It's possible that this is just a major coincidence, considering it was actually Virgil who guides Dante through hell and purgatory, while Beatrice is rather his guide through heaven, but it's interesting to take notice to, and it might fit in with other theories about the unknown. Now, in episode 9, you can see Wirt walking around his room. If you pause the scene and take a look, you can find some interesting things. For one, the train set. This could be foreshadowing to the train they avoid after climbing the wall. Next is the band poster, which is for the band called the Black Turtles. This is a reference to the Black Turtles they frequently find in the unknown. You can also find a book labeled Interior Design, which could reference Wirt's interest in the subject, which he exhibits in Chapter 5 when criticizing the decor in the mansion.
I don't know. Hey, does this room look different to you?
How so?
It's like French Rococo style. That doesn't really seem in line with Endicott's Georgian sensibilities.
How? What? Who on earth am I talking to right now?
Should I not know that sort of stuff?
Endicott probably just...
In the same scene, you can see a close-up of Wirt's table, and on it you can read 2 of the cassette labels, and one reads 4 Non-Blondes, which is a reference to the band 3 Non-Blondes. The second label reads Summer Mist, which might be a reference to Summer Rain, a song by Belinda Carlisle. We can actually use these references to find out when Over the Garden Wall takes place. As in what year? 4 Non-Blondes formed in 1989 and didn't put out an album until 1992. Summer Rain was performed first in 1990. If Wirt has these cassettes, that means Over the Garden Wall probably takes place in the early 90s, not sometime between the 60s and the 80s like some people believed. When Wirt and Greg are saved and taken to the hospital, the scene changes with an overview on their town. Funny enough, their town looks exactly the same as the town from the Cartoon Network series Clarence. You can take that how you will. And last but not least, the outro and the intro. Now this is extremely obvious, but the entire intro is foreshadowing the series. And if you did not pick up on that or did not go back and watch it, go do that. There's a bunch in it that'll make you go, oh. Here's a couple things that I noticed that might be hard to spot. In the intro, when Beatrice is sitting with her dog, a bird flies from the tree in the background. You can see her demeanor and you can tell that she's very aggravated. You can assume that that's the bird she throws the rock at, which in turn leads to her curse. Later in the intro, you see 2 kids playing with a wind-up boat that is visually similar to the ferry that our trio takes in Chapter 6. And finally, in the outro, you can see Lorna reading a book titled Tome of the Unknown, which is a reference to the pilot that Patrick McHale created for Over the Garden Wall. Well, that's all the findings I have for the video, and I hope it... Wait a second. What is that? Do you guys see that? Oh my god. It all makes sense. Everything makes sense. They were never in the unknown. The beast was never out to get them. How did we not see this? It's so obvious. The entire time. It was the Illuminati. On that note, this is the real end to the video. I most likely have not covered everything hidden in the show, so if you have any theories or secrets you know about, leave a comment for myself and everyone to see. Also, please subscribe if you like me, Senpai, and thanks for watching. This is Virtual Jordan, signing off.